Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I hope everyone is keeping well. The idea for this podcast actually came about when I was talking to my clients last week, the week before. I have kind of like a private podcast with my clients once a week where we get on, we chat about everything. And I was talking to my clients very openly about a business mentorship that I was part of last year. So I always tell people, you know, if you want to get from A to B and you don't have the skill set to get there, go and invest in someone to help you get there. And that's what I did last year. So I was talking to them about that. I was being very vulnerable, which is a very important part of my coaching. I basically coach completely being open and honest with each of my clients in the hope that they feel they can return that to me, and then we can get to the bottom of their problems and I can help them out with whatever they need. But anyway, off topic there. The concept of this podcast came about when I was chatting to them about the business mentorship that I did. And I was talking about how the stats that I got back from that business mentorship about general online fitness coaching really surprised me, because I was told that about 3 in 10 people who start online coaching with a coach don't actually finish the coaching or see it through till the end. And that comes through a lack or a non-adherence from the person. So basically they sign up, they think they're going to change their lives, then they just don't do what they're supposed to do and they drop off and they never finish. And the reason that made me kind of think was because I thought 3 in 10 was quite a high number. That's 30 in 100 clients. So me being the mathematician that I am, for anyone who listens to the podcast will know that I have a degree in maths. I got it after my neuroscience degree. I started to wonder, you know, what were my stats like? And I was pretty confident that they were better than the general online fitness coach. So I went back through all of the information I had on clients, and it was over the last 4 or 5 years. And I realized that firstly, I've at this point coached thousands of people one-to-one. And I started to do the maths and I realized that my, I suppose, success rate with clients was 0.4 out of 10 people don't finish their coaching with me or don't see it through, again, due to their non-adherence of the program. So that's, if you think about it, that's 4 in every 100 or 2 in every 50 clients. And that sits with me. That makes sense with me. I can kind of, see that in my past results. The 3 in 10 was just very high. Now, you might think I am saying all this to blow smoke up my own arse, but I absolutely am. And as I said at the start, it was what gave me the idea to actually come on and record this podcast that hopefully you will find useful. Because I was chatting to clients about this, about my success rate with clients. And the next line that I said with clients was, you might look at this and think that's amazing and Kellie can get me results, but it's actually just highlighting to you that no matter how good, your coach is, no matter how good anything is that you invest in life to get you from A to B, it won't work unless you show up and you implement the things that you're supposed to implement. And the concept or the topic for today's podcast is only you can give yourself what you want. As I mentioned at the intro to this, I was part of a business mentorship last year, and I paid a lot of money to be part of that mentorship because, as I said, I wanted to, get my business to the next level. And I could have paid all the money, and I could have expected for my business to change, but it'd be very silly of me. What I needed to do was invest the money, get all the information that I needed to scale my business. And here's the important point. It's to implement all of that education that I received. And that's how my business would change. And that's exactly what I did. I paid a lot of money, got a lot of information, but I implemented that information, at the start of this year. And my business has just rocketed since then. So that's what the concept of today's podcast is about. No matter how good, as I said, the coaches or the services, if you're not willing to implement all of the information, the education, the support that you get, nothing will change. I give my clients an amazing service. I'm always going to say that. But I cannot do the work for my clients. I can't, when they sign up with me, I can't then go around to their house every day, knock on their door, make sure, they're eating the right food, make sure they're getting their sessions done. I can't go into the gym and do the reps for them. And I've said it on my podcast before. If I could do this for anybody in the world, if I was to pick one person who I could, get them the body composition that they wanted, the fitness levels that they wanted, the confidence that they wanted in their body, I would pick my mother because, she's been on this podcast before and, she's going through a weight loss process. She's working with me and my team at the moment. So if I could actually do the work for anyone, wouldn't I pick to do it for my favourite person in the world? But that's not how it works. And hopefully after this episode today, you'll feel empowered to actually realise that in every scenario in life, there's a choice. And you need to be willing to pay the price for the choice that you make. So I can, and I do, give my clients everything that they could ever need for success with weight loss, with increased fitness, with, body composition in terms of toning, adding muscles. But if they don't implement all of the information, all of the education that I'm giving them, it means jack shit. They will never change. And I make that very, very clear at the start of my coaching service. And I try to get that across on, my podcast and my social media platforms, because what I'm ultimately doing is I'm trying to pre-screen clients. I don't want hand holders coming to me, looking for me to, hold their hand essentially and bring them through this journey, because, that's not how life works. As I said, you have to take on board the information and you have to be willing to implement it yourself. So what I want you to do now is I want you to stop what you're doing. I'm going to stop and I'm going to take a drink. Maybe actually not if you're driving. Don't stop driving. But whatever you're doing, if you're not driving, I want you to stop just for a minute. And I want you to be very, very honest with yourself. I want you to be allow yourself to be open and honest with yourself now for this minute and not lie to yourself. And I want you to ask yourself, are the actions that you're taking now, day in, day out, aligned with the results that you've set for yourself? And listen, as always, this podcast isn't just about weight loss. It crosses over into all areas of your life. But I always relate it back to weight loss because essentially that's what I'm trying to do here on this podcast. So if you are a person who's trying to lose weight, maybe you've tried to lose weight for so many years in the past and you're still doing that now, I want you to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, are the actions that you're doing day in, day out aligned to the result that you've set for yourself? So the result being weight loss. So ask yourself, are you moving your body? Are you getting your steps in? Are you maybe going and doing a couple of sessions, in the gym or running sessions or whatever exercise that you like? Are you doing that consistently week in, week out? Are you looking at your nutrition and trying to eat in a slight deficit? Are you trying to, eat good quality nutritious food? Because another thing has just popped into my mind there, that a load of people, when they start off in their weight loss journey and they start learning about, calorie deficit, we've heard it now so many times online, but they say, oh, I get it now. I just have to be in a deficit. Does that mean I can eat what I want? And, in reality, you can eat what you want as long as you're in a deficit. You will lose body fat, but you'd never be able to stick to it because you'd be hungry. You wouldn't feel satiated. Your body composition would be shite. In order to look well, look fit, you have to resistance train, but also you have to be hitting adequate protein in order to feel good and not to be deficient in certain, micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. You have to be eating nutritious food. Anyway, I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but I want you to ask yourself, are you eating well? Are you focusing on getting to bed and not, sitting up till 12, 1, 2 in the morning, just binge watching the next Netflix series? At the moment, it's, Baby Reindeer? Me and Mo watched that the other day. But you need to be able to, hold yourself to a standard that you've set for yourself in order to achieve whatever goal. And again, it crosses out over not just with weight loss, with work. Are you actually putting in the work at work? Relationships, Everything in life, this can be implemented. So be honest with yourself and say, are the actions that I'm taking day in, day out aligned to the goals that I've set for myself? And it's important that you realize that I just said day in, day out, because I talk about this to death on social media, on my podcast, but there's no point in setting yourself a goal and trying to change something and being amazing for the first week, and then not being able to stick to that. The main thing that will determine success or failure in life is, are you able to be consistent with it? So if you now say to yourself, right, I'm going to lose weight. That's my goal. And you currently have a step goal of like 3,000 because you work in an office and you just never move. And you say to yourself, do you know what? I'm going to hit 10,000 steps a day. That's very, very unrealistic because you have a massive way to go to achieve that. Whereas what you should really do is you should start small. So say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to push my step goal to 5,000 or 6,000. And when I hit that, I'm going to push on then to 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10. And that's the way change works in life. And that's how you actually eventually get to where you want to go. But so many people say to themselves, okay, I want to lose weight. And they're so extreme in their actions that they're never able to stick to it. It's the typical New Year's resolution. Want to lose a bit of weight, so I'm in the gym 5 days a week. Well, in December, you didn't go to the gym 1 day a week. So what makes you think that you're going to be able to stick to that? Be realistic, start small, show up consistently, and in 6 months, a year's time, you won't even recognize yourself with the difference. But if you sit there, and I know it's a lot more than a minute since I've asked you to sit there, stop what you're doing and be honest with yourself. But if you are honest with yourself and you realize that you are not taking the actions that are required for success in whatever you want, but you're still expecting success. So what I mean by that is you say to yourself, I want weight loss, but my actions aren't in line with weight loss, but I'm still expecting weight loss. You're only setting yourself up for failure. You're only setting yourself up to be miserable because you're expecting weight loss, but you're not doing what's necessary. So you're always going to come up short. You're always going to feel miserable. You're always going to feel like a failure. And I remember I had a client once, she had wrote down on her weekly log. So I review weekly logs, and she'd written down, I'm really disappointed that I didn't lose weight this week, right? And firstly, that just shows me a lack of self-awareness, because really, if you feel like your actions, in a week were aligned to weight loss and you didn't see weight loss, it's due to something outside of your control. A lot of things can affect the scales. And I've talked about this on the podcast before, hormone level changes due to menstruation, due to stress, due to not enough sleep, maybe on medication for something, loads of different things. Being sick can affect the scales. And, hopefully if you're working with a coach or working with me, you're starting to realize this now. But when this person had written down on the log, I'm disappointed I didn't lose weight this week, I was like, right, let me see what's going on here. So I looked at the log and I saw that her actions that week were not in line with her wanting to lose weight. So anyone who's worked with me in the past, anyone who works with me now, I'm very, very straight with clients, because I think the problem a lot of the time with society, especially with coaching at the moment, is coaches want to tell clients what they want to hear in order to keep them happy, in order to think that they're going to keep that client on with them. And it actually doesn't work, because if you're telling someone what they want to hear, usually it's not what they need to hear, and they're never going to get results because of that. So when I feel like a client needs to be held responsible and needs to be, given, I suppose, a stern word, that's what I do. So I got back in touch with the client, and I kind of went through her log, and I was like, you went to McDonald's here. You ate out for breakfast here. You went out for a meal for a birthday here. You didn't hit your steps 5 out of 7 days this week. Your sleep was shit. All of these things I highlighted, and I was like, how? How can you be disappointed with not losing weight? How can you have expected to lose that weight that week? These actions, and I was pointing to all the bits on our logs, those actions are not actions that will result in weight loss. And for you to think that they would result in weight loss is a bit silly. Like, come on. I always talk about, speaking to yourself the way you would to a child, If your child was, eating processed food all the time, not moving their body, not getting adequate sleep, what would you say to them? But we find it so hard to be honest with ourselves because why? Because it requires change. It requires us to get up actually off our arse and do something about it, put work in, change. And that's not easy. Change is never easy. For me, and I've said it so many times online, there is nothing worse than someone moaning about results that they didn't get from work that they didn't do. And that's with weight loss. That's with work. That's with business, you know. I have so many people contact me online nowadays about, you know, my coaching service and asking how did I get from this level to this level. And I give talks about it, you know. I've given a lot of talks about it recently, actually, at business events and fitness events. And the bottom line is I worked my fucking arse off for the first 2 years, you know, 12 to 16 hour days, working with so many clients underneath me one-to-one that I actually didn't have a life outside of it. And it's funny because one of the slides that I presented at an expo recently, I said after 2 years, I hit this level in terms of revenue. I hit this level in terms of clientele. I was, you know, doing amazing. But, you know, there's always a cost. There's always a cost. I didn't have time. Fortunately, I didn't have kids at that time because I'm not sure I would have chosen, you know, that level of work. But, you know, I missed out on, you know, different things with family, maybe didn't spend enough time with Mo and stuff like that. So I was saying that on the outside, it was, you know, all of this success that people could see. But in the background, I was paying a price for this success. But I said at the expo, I was like, and if anyone was to ask me would I do it again, my answer would be yes. Because at the start of any change, it's always going to require a lot of work. But as you get used to, you know, doing the work and doing the thing, you get better at it, and the perception of it becomes easier. And usually, you know, you can start to relax a little bit on what you're doing when you progress through it. But, you know, you hear it all the time, people saying, oh, it's not fair that, you know, let's say Mary down the road looks great, you know, she has an amazing body. And it might sound harsh, but it is fucking fair. It is, because Mary's done the work to get to that the position that she's in. She focuses on steps. She works out 2-3 times a week. She has kids, yeah, but she makes it work. She fits it into her lifestyle. And again, you don't have to be drastic with this. You don't have to be drastic with anything. I honestly believe that, you know, for any long-term change, you just have to show up and do the small things daily. But hopefully what you're getting through this episode already is the awareness that you have to show up and you have to do the work and you have to be willing to wait. Patience is key. Because we're in a day and age now where we just get dopamine hits all of the time. We get the dings, rings, pings on the Instagram. We're constantly gratified, you know. We ring up, we get a takeaway, don't have to cook. Instant gratification. We want results now. But for anything that is worth having, it never comes easy and it never comes overnight. So if you're watching this or you're listening to me right now and you want to lose weight, just start small. Start small tomorrow and don't stop. Increase your step count by 2,000 tomorrow and keep doing that. And a tip with a step goal that I always give to my clients is, because everybody's life is different, you know, the times that you have available to you throughout the day is different to other people. You have kids, maybe you don't have kids, you have a stressful job, maybe you don't, you're in college, maybe you're not, whatever. Everyone's situation is different. So what I say to clients is find a time a day that works best for you to get steps in. Is it getting up 20 minutes earlier? Is it your lunch break? Is it just before you go home? Is it after you put the kids down in the evening? Is it after dinner in the evening? Whatever works best for you. And try and stick to that time. Because what happens is if you, let's say you choose to get up 20 minutes early each day, get up and get your steps in, and you do that consistently day in, day out, it just becomes a habit. It just becomes a pattern. It just becomes part of your daily routine, like brushing your teeth. You've been doing it for how many years now, and you don't even have to think about it. It's not like you say to yourself, I wonder, will I brush my teeth today? It's just something that you do. And eventually, over time, does this happen in a week, a month, 2 months? No. 6 months, maybe? A year? Yes. If you stick with that and you go out for that 20-minute walk every morning or whatever time that suits you best, it just becomes part of your day. I do that now. I'm up, I've said it on the podcast before. If I don't have to get the girls to their childminder in the morning, it's not my morning. I'm straight out and I'm gone for my run or I'm gone for my walk. If I do bring the girls to their childminders, I drop them off and then I go straight for my walk, straight for my run, and I'm set up for the day. I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to get stuck into work and my mind is in a better place, so I'm more productive that day. Another thing, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about getting your steps in early. If you get out exercise early in the day, it has a positive knock-on effect to your food choices throughout the day because you feel better and you're more willing to treat yourself better in terms of good nutrition. So yeah, that went off on a long tangent there, but that came from me saying that I absolutely hate when people are moaning about results that they haven't got from work that they didn't do. Nobody is going to do the work for it. Only you can give yourself what you want. And this is exactly what this podcast is about. And I said earlier on, I said, try and speak to yourself the way you would speak to a child. And I want to use this example, right? Because it really, really highlights how simple this is. And I say that online, things are simple. Like a calorie deficit is simple in terms of, calories in versus calories out, but that doesn't mean it's easy to implement. And I think people get caught up there. So things can be simple to understand, but they're not easy to implement. They take, energy. It takes effort. And as human beings, we want the path of least resistance. So a lot of the time people just aren't willing to do the work. But anyway, let me give you an example of a child. Okay, so let's say you had a child or a child, whatever, and they're doing their leaving cert. So they're whatever age. What are they? 16, 17, 18 years of age. And this kid is doing their leaving cert, but they never, ever study. They never, ever do their homework. They're never engaged in class. They just don't give a shit really, right? And when that child sits the exams and they come back and they showed you that they didn't pass anything, what would your reply to them being, knowing what they've done for the previous year? You probably would say, well, I'm not surprised. But what if that that kid came to you and said, let's say it's your own kid or it's your niece, your nephew, your friend's kid, whatever. And they said to you, listen, I'm actually so upset. I'm so disappointed that I didn't pass my exams. What would you say to them? You'd probably be nice and be like, sure, you can do it again. But really, you'd be thinking, how are you disappointed? You never fucking studied for it. Do you know what I mean? How did you expect to pass an exam for something that you never studied for? But you constantly say it to yourself, I'm disappointed I'm not losing weight. How? How are you disappointed you're not losing weight? You're doing nothing to lose weight. All of the actions that you're taking aren't in line with losing weight. So it's about being honest with yourself and realising that you can. I said it in a talk that I was part of about a month ago. If it's humanly possible, I genuinely believe that we can do it. But we have to be willing to realise what's, necessary to achieve it. So you might have to get help from a coach like me or someone else online to actually understand what is necessary for fat loss. And then you have to be willing to show up and do the thing. And also another thing is you have to be willing to be patient because change that you've always wanted, change that's worthwhile will never happen overnight. But there is a price that you need to pay in order to get to where you want to be. And I've said it on the podcast numerous times before, but I love the quote by Alex Hormozi. It's one of my favourite quotes. It just stuck in my head when I heard him talk about it. I also heard Venus Williams talk about this before. And it's the concept of a price tag. Everything that you've ever wanted in life has a price tag attached to it. And you need to decide, are you willing to pay the price to get the thing? And I love it because it's very visual. I can almost, see myself walking through a room and everything that I've ever wanted, the house, the car, the kids, everything, they have a price tag attached to it. And you need to ask yourself, are you willing to pay the price to get the thing? And I've said it before, I'm nearly sick to death of saying this, that nobody cares really if you don't want to pay the price. It's not going to affect anybody else's life. But then you need to be realistic with, how you expect. So for example, are you willing to get your steps in, to focus on nutrition, to train a couple of times a week, to focus on sleep, maybe focusing on, reducing screen time and using that time to meal prep or whatever. Are you willing to do all of those things if you want to lose weight? And only you can decide that. But then this is the important point. You need to be willing to accept the outcome. So if your answer is yes, you know what, Kelly? I feel fucking empowered by this episode. Tomorrow, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start doing these small things, not big drastic things, but small things. And I'm going to start to work towards weight loss. Brilliant. Happy days. I am delighted for you. I genuinely am. But if you're sitting there and you're like, do you know what? I'm just not arsed doing those things. That's fine as well. But that is your choice. But this is the thing. Stop then being upset, being, annoyed, pissed off, disappointed that you're not losing weight because you've made that choice. And if you look at different things in life, so imagine walking through your room with all of the price tags hanging there. I always visualize this. Ask yourself in different areas of your life, are you willing to pay the price? Because, this crosses over into everything. I've given you the example about, weight loss. When it boils down to it, all of the things that I mentioned, like steps, sleep, screen time, all of these things, they're brilliant to help you lose weight and they probably will result in a sustainable weight loss. But weight loss just boils down to, and we all know this by now, being in a deficit, calories in versus calories out. And if you want to lose weight, you have to, what is the price for that? The price is being in a deficit, throughout. People just think it needs to be a daily thing, but it's not. It's a weekly thing. And the example I always give, and I round this number up because it's not, when you round numbers up, it's easier for people to explain, but let's understand. But let's say we had a person, right, and they were trying to hit 2,000 calories a day, and that's in a deficit. They're going to lose weight. Happy days. Now, this is just an example. That means that person has 14,000 calories for the entire week. But what tends to happen is, they hit 15, 16, 1,700 calories Monday to Friday. They think they're great. They think, whoa, we're losing weight. They absolutely go mental at the weekend and they consume 3, 4, 5,000 calories on both days. They're gone over their 14,000 calories for the week, but they still can't realise, why haven't I losing weight? I'm being really good. You're being really good Monday to Friday, but you're ruining your progress at the weekend. Am I saying you can't have an indulgent weekend? No, I'm not. But I'm saying you can't have an indulgent, 48 hours at the weekend. You have to choose your suffering. You have to pay the price. So for weight loss, the price is, being strict with your nutrition, not super strict, but being strict enough to allow you to get into a deficit over a week. And this is not forever, and your deficits shouldn't be massive. That's why people can't usually stick to, a calorie deficit, is because they go way too restrictive. They go like 1,000 under their maintenance calories and they're absolutely fucking miserable. Go slow. Just don't give up. Keep going and eventually you will get there, but you will get there in a sustainable way, an enjoyable way. So you won't be pressing the fucking fuck it button every second, third week. So that's just one example of this, are you willing to pay the price to get the thing? But I want to give you other examples because it will allow you to start looking at this whole concept of this podcast that I'm recording today, not just from a weight loss perspective, Only you can give yourself what you want, and are you willing to pay the price to get the thing? So another example is being a parent. So when the girls arrived, right, I booked for an Ironman event, the Cork Ironman event. Our twin girls arrived in October, and I had an Ironman event booked in for the following August. And complete and utter naive, which I think everybody is until they have kids, about how, your kids are going to fit into your lifestyle. They're going to be grand. It's going to be great. And then you realize, they decide. You fit in to their lifestyle actually. But I thought this was going to be easy. What's everyone talking about? And I'll never forget, I was training for the Ironman event. I think I started training in the March of the year, and I was doing the event in the August. And I was out, training some days, 5, 6 days a week. And I just was like, one, I felt so guilty, a new mom spending that time away. But two, I realised my priorities needed to change because my life did change. So I always say to clients, but I joke and say I was just so naive when the kids came along, thinking that I could maintain the level of training that I was doing before the kids came along. So that kind of feeds back into this whole thing of your lifestyle is not the same as anyone else's lifestyle. So you need to sit down and say to yourself, how many times a week can I go to the gym realistically? And I chatted to Brian Keane on his podcast before about this, and he was saying that one of his clients was moaning that I can only get to the gym 2 days a week. And, let's say Mary down the road, she's at the gym 5 days a week and she's looking brilliant and I want to gain muscle quicker. And he was like, yeah, but you have 5 kids. Would you trade your 5 kids for 5 days in the gym? And she was like, oh, very good point, So it's just about asking yourself these things. Under my certain circumstances, what is realistic for me? And what can I achieve? And if you want to be a great parent, this is where this all stemmed from. What is the price you need to pay to be a great parent? Well, from my point of view, this is what I've learned. Our girls are now just over 2.5. And I realised that in order to be a great parent, the price that you need to pay is one, being present. So now, when I have time with the girls, because they're in their childminders, Mo has her certain days with the girls when she's not working. I have my certain days, and then we have our one day together at the weekend. I now have realised that I need to be present with the girls when I say that it's my time with them. I can't be scrolling on my phone. I can't be thinking about work, because it's their time with me. It's my time with them. And only recently have I started to come off social media for the whole of a Sunday, because I spend the whole Sunday with Mo and the girls, and that's our day as a family. And I noticed I was scrolling, I was, posting this, that and the other, and it's just not acceptable. It's are my actions aligned with the expectations or the values that I'm setting for myself? And I caught myself up, or I pulled myself up on that, and I realised that they weren't. So now I've just decided not to be on social media on a Sunday, and it's just working amazingly for me. So with kids, you need to be present with them. And you need to make them the priority, because, I'll never forget, and it actually upsets me to think about it. But one day, one of my girls came into the room, and I was on my phone, and she was saying something to me, and I was just on the phone, and she was like, "Mommy, put your phone in your pocket." And I was just like, ugh. And it was like a knife into my heart. And I said it only to Mo the other day. I was like, I love now that we don't have our phones around the girls. So we've made this rule that if you want to go on your phone, you can go on it anytime. That's fine. But you have to go into the other room where the girls aren't there. Because, when you're a kid, you grow up and what you see your parents do, you are your kids' childhood. They look at you and they're going to emulate what you're doing now when they grow up. And I said it to Mo the other day. I was like, I just don't want our girls looking at us, looking at a screen and thinking that's normal. Like, it is normal nowadays because we're all glued to our phones. But hopefully, just by that little change, not being on our phones in front of them, they grow up to realise that you don't have to be on your phone all of the time. It's basically that thing. We are the girls' childhood. For the most part, your kids become what you are until they're old enough to realise that they can unlearn certain things that don't serve them, or maybe that they don't agree with. And that brings me on to the next point. For me, another price that you need to pay to be a great parent is unlearning. And what I mean by that is what I just said. I grew up believing certain things because my parents did those things. So, for example, I've talked about it on the podcast before. I grew up hearing my mom, my aunties and stuff saying, oh, we're going to go down to Slimming World or Unislim or whatever the bloody slimming clubs are called, because they wanted to lose a bit of weight. So in my little brain, it was, oh, you want to lose weight? You go here and you do these things. So that was just like, it was just implanted into my head, this knowledge, until I grew up and started to realise that actually that is probably couldn't be further from the truth. And I learned about, sustainable weight loss and all of these different things. But I had to, at some point, question that belief that had been instilled in me. I call it a faulty framework. We're all brought up and we're given a faulty framework from our parents, from our teachers, all the beliefs that they believe, they pass them on to us. And it's not mostly it's not out of a place of badness. It's just what they have grown up believing. But when you're an adult, it's very important to realize that you get to decide what you believe, and you get to decide all of these things that I've been told throughout my life. Do I actually agree with them? Do I believe in them? And if not, it's okay to change your mind. We once thought the earth was flat. It's okay to change your mind. And there's a lot of things that I once believed, grown up through my life, that now I don't believe anymore. And there's a lot of other things that I am willing and open to unlearn if it's going to make me a better parent. So the two things for now, I could be wrong, who knows? I'm not an expert and never claim to be an expert on parenting, but two things I think are really, really valuable and I suppose are the prices that you need to pay to be a great parent, are being present and willing to unlearn things that maybe, aren't serving you in terms of being a parent. That went off on a massive tangent. And again, I am no parenting expert. This is just how I feel about parenting. But this is all related back to, are you willing to pay the price? Another one with fitness. Do you want to be fit? Yes. Are you willing to pay the price to be fit? And what is the price? Well, it's to move your body, I suppose. It's to train. So get out and get your steps in, move your body. Go to the gym if that's what you want to do, or go and join your local rugby team, camogie team, GAA team, whatever it is, but just show up and get your sessions in consistently throughout the week. And what do you get as a result of that? You get fitness. Another one is your job. What's the price you need to pay to, I suppose, progress in your job? And it's, are you willing to show up and work well? And then when you get your promotion, if you do get your promotion, are you willing to take on board all of the extra stress or, I suppose, power or responsibility? That's the word I'm looking for. Are you willing to take on that responsibility? And the reason that just popped into my head there was because one of Mo's friends, I think it was last year, she was offered a promotion in her job. And, isn't that great? Doesn't everybody think a promotion is great? But she knew that if she accepted the promotion, her responsibility basically would double. She'd have loads more responsibility. She would have, I suppose, potentially a lot more stress. And she had a young kid. And I'll never forget Mo telling me that her friend said no to the promotion in work. And I just said, you know what? That is fucking unreal. Because so many people be like, yeah, promotion, more responsibility, more power, more money. But when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And for her, saying yes to a promotion, more money, more responsibility, wasn't worth saying no to, I suppose, quality time spent with her family. And I'll never forget thinking that's unreal. I love to hear that. But that's a price. Was she willing to pay the price for more money? Because people think, oh, more money, isn't it great? But there's always a price. There's always a price to be paid to get something. And she wasn't willing to pay that price. The last example I'm going to give you of the price, the price analogy, is in relationships. There's always a price that you need to pay in order to progress your relationship. And relationships aren't easy. Anyone to tell you that they are just completely and utterly lying, because you have two people and both needs need to be met and you need to work together and all of this crack's going on. But in order to have a healthy, relationship that you enjoy, hopefully you're listening to this and you're in a relationship that you enjoy, because unfortunately so many people just are going through life in relationships, I suppose, that aren't bringing them happiness, but they're afraid of change. What's the quote by Tim Ferriss? Most people choose misery over uncertainty. I really like that quote, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But from my point of view, in order to be in a relationship that's working, that, is enjoyable, and I suppose where you really do love each other, is you have to be open, you have to be honest, you have to be willing to compromise. And the biggest thing for me is you have to be vulnerable, because if you've listened to my podcast in the past, you know that was an area of my life that I really, really struggled with. I felt like vulnerability was a weakness, and poor Mo got the blunt of that a lot of the time. When we had disagreements or whatever, I would just close up and I would just go off, and then I'd come back an hour later and be like, okay, is everything okay? Instead of actually just talk about it and express, I suppose, how I feel. So yeah, for me, a big one in relationships is being honest with your partner. Like, think about it. Are you very, very, very honest? Do they know what's going on inside your head? And I was chatting to a client of mine during the week, and she was talking about, oh, me and the other half are killing each other and I'm unhappy about this, that and the other. And I just said, have you said that to him though? Does he know? Because you have this thing playing in your head about how he's doing this, that and the other, and he probably is oblivious, you know? So communication, being open, honest, vulnerable. So yeah, that did go off on a massive tangent there, but it just brings it back to the quote that I was saying about, you know, are you willing to pay the price to get the thing? And the harsh reality in life is that it's on you. It's not on anyone else. The reason that you're not losing weight, the reason maybe that you're not progressing in your job, or, you know, you're not in a relationship, I suppose, that you want to be in, or you're not the type of parent that you've wanted to be or whatever, is because you're not taking the actions that are required to get you there. Only you can give yourself what you want. And are you willing to say no now to things for better things to come? I've talked about it on the podcast before, delaying gratification. And I mentioned it earlier. We live in a time now that's just full of instant gratification. We get what we want now. But if you want to achieve anything in life, and I'll never believe anything different. Well, I say never, but I'm always open to change my mind. But I genuinely believe if you develop the ability to delay gratification, that's basically just saying no now for better things to come, you can achieve anything in life. Snooze, stop snoozing. Get up, go to the gym. Stop getting meals out. Start cooking your own meals, or even get those, I've said it on here before, get those calorie controlled meals. I always go to Aldi and grab a couple of those. I like the taco fry ones, have them in the back of the fridge there in case I'm busy with work, I don't get time to cook, bang it in the microwave. You know, I know the protein, I know the calories. It's aligned with my goals, you know. So step count. It's raining. What would we all want to do? We want to, you know, sit on the couch, don't want to get out into the rain and get our steps in. But is that in line with the goals that you're expecting of yourself? I said on my Instagram the other day, I said, people who are successful in life, people who are achieving what they want to in life, it's because they've developed the ability to say no to themselves. Was it easy to develop that ability? No, it wasn't. But they stuck with it. They were dedicated, and now they're probably in a place where, yes, it is easier for them to get outside in the rain. It is easier for them than you to meal prep. It seems easier for you because they've done it for longer. And I always talk about, you know, holding yourself to a higher standard, and self-discipline. That's the word I'm looking for. Self-discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So if you were to go into the gym tomorrow and you were to do bicep curls and you were to do them for every day for the next 6 months, your biceps will pop, you know, the muscle will grow massive. But it's the same as self-accountability, self-discipline. The more that you show up for yourself, the more that you stop yourself from pressing snooze, the more that you get outside in the rain and get your session done, the more you cook your own meals, the more you get to bed early and stop watching, you know, 10 episodes of Netflix a night, the easier it will get for you to do that consistently, because your self-discipline will grow. It's actually scientifically proven that you can strengthen neural pathways. It's called neural plasticity in your brain to have a default, to change your default settings. Your default settings at the moment are to come home from work, jump on the couch, not get your steps in, order a takeaway, blah, blah, blah. They're all your default settings at the moment, but you can change them. And every single time you decide to make the better decision that is in line with your goal, the pathways in your brain become stronger and you become better at making that decision. And the decision then ultimately becomes easier for you to make. And I wanted to kind of wrap up on what I'm saying here with one of my favourite quotes, and it's from Jordan Peterson. And I'm going to read it off the page here. It says, I don't really need to read it because I kind of know it inside out, but it's the quote, and it says, "You're going to pay a price for everything you do and everything you don't do. You don't get to choose not to pay the price. You get to choose which poison you're going to take, and that's it." So example, you know, and I loved the way he used the word poison, because Is it easy to get outside and get your steps done, to meal prep, all of these different things? No, it's not easy, but that's the hard that you're willing to choose. What do you get because you chose that hard? You get a fit body, you get a body composition that you like, you have self-confidence, So you've chosen the hard thing in terms of doing the meal prep, doing your sessions, but then you get rewarded on the back end of that. Whereas the flip side of that is you can choose the easy now and not meal prep and sit on the couch and watch the telly, but you get the hard later. What's the hard later? Being unfit, unhealthy, not being able to walk up a flight of stairs, not being able to play with your kids, not being able to play with your grandkids. Maybe, this is drastic, maybe dying early due to cardiovascular complications because you've literally zero cardio fitness at all. You don't get outside, you don't move your body. So yeah, choose the easy path now, but you'll be paying for it down the line. And as human beings, it's very hard to see into the future, and to really see what your life will look like if you don't make the choices daily that are aligned to what you want down the line. And the problem is with it that in the moment, every single decision seems inconsequential, I just won't get out for my walk today. What's going to happen because of that? Right now, nothing. It's insignificant in the moment. But every time that you choose, not getting out for your steps, all those choices compound on top of each other day in, day out, until you get to a point where you no longer recognize yourself and you've become the person that you never wanted to become. When did it start? Well, realistically, it started the first day that you made that decision that seemed very, very insignificant, I heard on, I think it was Diary of a CEO, they were talking about not brushing your teeth. And he was like, what happens if you don't brush your teeth for one day? Nothing really, probably nobody would notice. What happens if you don't brush your teeth for a week? Well, nothing really to your teeth structure, I suppose, but maybe your co-workers, your family would start to notice and be like, Jesus Christ, go brush your teeth. But then he says, what would happen if you didn't brush your teeth for 5 years, let's say? And the answer is you'd lose your teeth. They would be dirty, mouldy, falling out, gum disease, all of these horrible things. And then he said, when did that happen? When did that change happen? And the answer is it happened the very first day that you decided not to brush your teeth, because then all of your actions after that compounded and came up with this result. And I do agree with that, but I just want to make a preface here because I know this might come across as me sounding, oh, you have to do everything and you have to be perfect every single day. I'm not saying that. And I would argue that, missing a session once, missing your meals once and getting a takeaway once when you didn't want to get a takeaway or you didn't plan to get a takeaway, that's fine. Everyone bloody, slips up. Everyone has something come up. Everyone's busy. Life happens. But just don't let it happen twice in a row. So you miss your session today in the gym. So what? It's fine. Get over it. Move on with your life. But don't miss tomorrow's session. Because if you miss 2 in a row, you're more likely to miss 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line. And you're saying to yourself, do you know what? I may get back to the gym again. So yes, you can slip up once. We all slip up. I said it. I commented on a woman's comment to me on Instagram yesterday. I put up a video talking about this. I put up a video saying you can't moan about people having the body they all dreamed of because they've learned to say no to themselves. They've learned to show up for themselves. And this woman commented on it and said, "Thank you so much, Kellie. It's given me the kick up the arse that I needed." She said, "I started to notice myself slip." And I commented and I said, "We all slip. We're human." And I think the problem is people portraying online that they don't slip, this fucking perfect life that I always talk about. It's a problem. It's the comparison syndrome. You get into these cycles of comparing yourself to what you see online. It's not real. But this woman said on the comment, I've noticed that I've started to slip. And I said to her, everyone slips. I slip. But the ability to catch yourself slipping is what will determine your success or your failure. So for example, I was on a podcast before and I talked about, social media. Sometimes I do scroll on my phone for an hour, let's say. And then I notice myself and I catch myself and I say, "Kellie, what the fuck are you doing? Like scrolling online, just wasting your time." And then I don't do it. And then maybe, a couple of months down the line, I catch myself doing it again. And it would be unrealistic to say that I will never scroll on my phone again, or I will never miss a gym session again, or I will never, get a takeaway when I had planned not to get a takeaway that day. It'd be unrealistic. Life happens. But I always catch myself and I always bring myself back to my default settings because I now have an identity that I am this fit, healthy person. And I love that I identify as that. I'm proud of that and I'm allowed to be proud of that. And if you are fit and healthy, you're allowed to be proud of that because you've done the work. You've said no now for better things to come. You've delayed gratification and you've said no now because you know what you want from yourself down the line. So listen, I'm going to finish this episode up. Hopefully that's hit home. But I want to finish it up on a very important point because I've talked about all through the episode about you giving yourself what you want, showing up for yourself, all of these things. And I just want to finish by saying that change, if you've decided after listening to me speak the last 30, 40 minutes, if you've decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm finally fucking going to show up for myself because I realise after listening to this episode that only I can give myself what I want. And you'd say, tomorrow, that's it, I'm on it. I just want you to be aware that change is never easy. And change is not supposed to be easy because so many people start a new goal, weight loss or a new business or a new whatever it is. And when it's not easy, they say to themselves, what's wrong with me? I can never seem to lose weight. I can never seem to, start this business, or I can never seem to progress in work, or I can never seem to this, that, and the other. And it's because people, most of the time, they're expecting change to be easy. And change is never, ever easy. It's actually, and I say this to clients all the time when they're going through a rough patch or they're finding it difficult, I always say to my clients that change is hard, and finding something hard is actually an indicator that you're headed in the right direction. Again, I know I'm going to bring this up, but I said it at the last expo that I was talking about. I was talking to coaches on how to build and scale an online business. And I said to them, if you're finding what you're doing at the moment, trying to change and grow and scale your business difficult, it's actually an indicator that you're headed in the right direction. Because, we all get stuck in comfortable habits, patterns and routines in life. Whether it's, let's say you're an online fitness coach and you're just tipping along and you're doing what you always did, you're getting what you always got. And you're comfortable doing that. Same with your body composition, you're comfortable ordering the takeaway every night. But if you want to change these, comfortable habits, patterns, routines that you're currently doing, it requires you to step outside of that comfort zone. And literally, if you think about it, getting outside of your comfort zone is going to be difficult because you're not going to be comfortable anymore. Change is uncomfortable, but it's necessary for growth. Let me say that again. Change is uncomfortable, but it's necessary for growth. To progress with your body, to progress with your business, to progress with your relationship if you're in a bad patch, to progress with anything in life is going to be difficult, but it's necessary for growth. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I just mentioned to you, actually, it's a nice way to come full circle. I mentioned to you at the start of this podcast that I had taken part in a business mentorship, and I actually started it. It was a 3-month thing last October. So that was October 2023, if I'm right. I can't even remember what year we're in, but that's when I started it. And over Christmas, I was implementing all the things I learned from it. I was changing the structure of my business. I was doing this, I was doing that. It was so foreign to me. It was so new to me. And I was so afraid of the unknown. Remember what I said earlier? Most people choose misery over uncertainty. We're terrified of the unknown. And I was so afraid of changing my business structure, changing this, that and the other, that I actually just broke down one night and I started just roaring, crying. I remember my office is outside in a shed in my garden. I was thrown out. I laugh about this. When the girls came along, I was thrown out of the office in the house because our house is tiny, and I was thrown out into a shed out in the back garden. But I was walking across from my office into my house and I just started crying. And I walked in the door and Mo was there and she's like, "What is wrong?" Like, I was just out working. And I was just like, I'm just finding this so difficult. I'm just finding the unknown of how this is all going to pan out so difficult because I was very comfortable with what I provided my clients. I got great feedback from clients that this worked, but in order to get to the next level, I had to change things up. And I just broke down and I was like, this is so, so hard, Mo. And she was like, "But Kellie, you always say that change is not supposed to be easy. It's an indicator that you're headed in the right direction." And now looking back, my business, it's just night and day. I've just progressed so far. And me going through that uncomfortable part of my life, was necessary for me to get to where I am today. If I didn't go through that, I would never have grown. Would have never have scaled and I would never have progressed. So that's just an example in business, in your body composition. Maybe let's say you're at a different level now. You've lost a good bit of weight. You only have a little bit of weight to go and you now want to start, adding muscle tone in your body. Unfortunately, you're going to have to change up your routine. Maybe you've got comfortable in a normal daily pattern routine that's got you to this point, but maybe your weight has dropped so much that you have to adjust calories slightly. You have to go down a little bit. You have to start implementing more resistance training. You have to do this, that, and the other. So you're now going to have to push further, but to get to the next level, to push the bar further, it requires change. And isn't it going to be difficult because you're stepping outside of your norm? Yeah, it is. But change is necessary for growth. Getting outside of your comfort zone is necessary for growth. So stop telling yourself that this is supposed to be easy because you're setting yourself up for failure. How many times have you said, "I'm going to lose weight, can't wait for this tomorrow, start Monday, bang." And then on Wednesday, you're like, "Oh, this is hard. What's wrong with me? I'm a failure. I can never stick to anything." It's supposed to be hard. It is supposed to be difficult. But if you stick with it, the hardest part is always the start. Stick with it for a week. Stick with it for 2 weeks. And in a month's time, it will seem so much easier than that day you found it difficult. 6 months' time, it will just be a breeze. It's your new routine. A year's time, you won't even think about it. So I want to finish up this episode by just saying there's a few quotes that I love saying to my clients and they wrap this up nicely about the last thing I was talking to you about. The whole concept of this podcast is only you can give yourself what you want. But the last bit I really wanted to focus on was the fact that change isn't supposed to be easy. So stop thinking it is because that's preventing you from succeeding because you're constantly pressing that fuck button. "Oh, what's wrong with me? I'm finding it difficult." Press the fuck button back to the way you were. Stop doing that. And what I want to say to you is that if you're doing what you always do, you're going to get what you've always got. I love that. Start a new diet, press the fuck button. Back to where you were, start a new diet, press the fuck button. If that's what you're constantly going to do, you're constantly going to get what you've always got in the past. And another one is nothing changes if nothing changes. That whole idea of how do you expect yourself to lose weight if you are not changing your actions? If you don't change the actions that you're doing day in, day out from now on, you're going to remain the same that you've always been. What does Albert Einstein say? What's his definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Definition of insanity. Listen, I am going to leave it there. I hope you found a lot of value in today's episode. I really feel like it can be an empowering episode if you are willing to take on board all of the information that I've just given you. And again, what does it mean if you take it on board but don't implement it? Nothing. Take it on board, sit with it this evening or tomorrow or whenever you choose to sit with it and decide that you actually are going to change. But this is the important point. Decide that you're going to do it in the right way from now on. You're going to start small and you're going to show up day in, day out, doing those small things. And this day next year, I guarantee you're either going to be at where you want to be or you're going to be very fucking close to that point. So yeah, listen, as I always say, look after yourself, take care. And if you found this episode useful, interesting, and you feel like somebody else could learn something from it or could benefit from it, I would appreciate if you shared it with your family, your friends, or anyone that you, as I said, would feel would benefit from it. Other than that, I will chat to you all soon and keep her lit.